This video is going to be over the right triangle trigonometry. So we're looking at a right triangle where we can find all sides and then we can figure out what sine, cosine, tan, cosecant, secant, and cotan are. So for this type of problem, we use these two ideas. This idea right here is the Pythagorean identity, which says that, a side squared plus a side squared is the hypotenuse squared. And we also have these uh, ratios for sine, cosine, tan, etc. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And whenever I say opposite, I mean here's the angle. You go to the opposite side. Notice the right triangle is here in between the opposite and the adjacent. So cosine is, the adjacent, which is the one that touches the angle here. And tan is going to be sine over cosine, which is opposite over adjacent. And then remember, we can flip these. So cosecant is just sine flipped, secant is cosine flipped, cotan is tan flipped. So let's do a problem. So for these problems, you can be given two things. One is just one trig ratio. So here, let's just, for example, we are given cosine. And then the second thing you're given is a quadrant. Let's just say it says quad 4. So this quadrant tells us which ones need to be negative and which ones need to be positive. So I'm going to draw my right triangle. So from this, you can find all the other. So the problems here, if you're given these two things, you can form this right triangle and find all of the trig ratios. So here I'm going to draw my right triangle. And so I know cosine, here's my theta. So I know that cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So the top one here must be the adjacent, and the denominator here must be the hypotenuse. And then I can find the other side using Pythagorean. So I know that a squared plus 3 squared equals 5 squared. Okay, so then I can solve for a squared. So that's 25 minus 9 if I bring this over. So a is square root of 16, which is going to be 4. So this side here is going to be 4, which is also my opposite side. Here's the angle. If you go across, it's opposite. So now I can go through and find sine, cosine, tan, I can find any of these. And just remember, this quadrant is telling us which one needs to be negative. So we know that in quad 4, we're going to have a negative sign. So we know that in quad 4, we're down here. So my sine is going to be negative because that's y is negative over here. And that also means that my cosine will be positive because x's are positive in this quadrant. And tan is just sine over cosine, so it's going to be negative. Cosecant is just sine flipped, so it will be negative. Secant is cosine flipped, so it will be positive. And cotan is tan flipped, so it will be negative. Okay, so now I can go through. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so the opposite is 4 over my hypotenuse, which is 5. Cosine, we already were given. That was adjacent over hypotenuse. Tan is opposite over adjacent, so it's just going to be 4/3. Cosecant is just going to be sine flipped, so I'm just going to go -5/4, just flipping this. Secant just flips this, so it's just going to be 5/3, and cotan just flips this, so it's just going to be 3/4. So for these problems, remember, you can be given one ratio and a quadrant, and you can find all of the other values. So if we just put some practice problems that you can try For instance, let's say sine theta is -2 over root 5 in quadrant 3. Tan theta is square root of 3 over 1 in quad 1. Cosine is 4 over square root of 10 in quad, let's do it negative in quad 2. And let's do cosecant is, um, let's do square root of 13 over 3 in quad 1. So try those out and see if you can get those.